what kind of a reaction we get to it. So things like ascending armor class, the way skill checks. I mean, it's very much a precursor to what eventually became the D20 system. And it's kind of amusing to occasionally see online somebody saying, "Hey, I picked up this Camel World game from like 1995, and there's all kinds of stuff in there that looks just like the D20 system. What's up with that?"
When y'all were, I'm sorry, I'm asking some questions, but I look second just got a whole list in my head here. When you were playtesting the cleric, was there a sense that the first edition cleric of Magic was too powerful? Because a lot of the spells there suddenly had caps on them. Specifically Magic Missile, Lightning Bolt, Fireball.
Well, they were both too powerful and too weak, because at the bottom level of the life of the Magic user is just a miserable experience. Oh, I did my 2 spells, I'm done. Okay, bye, I'll come back later. But yeah, then you start looking at things like Magic Missile, and if you were really a numbers crunching kind of person, there were certain, you just oh yeah, I will always take these spells because I will maximize my output, and at this level I get a crazy number of shots that never miss, and it's yeah, I'll just fill that guy full of holes. Okay, next one.
Yeah. Anybody who was paying attention to Magic Missile knew that at level 20, Magic Missile was a real killer.
We had to give some way to make you want to take the higher level spells short of Wish, which was the ultimate nightmare.
What was the thought on the Bard? Why did you finally make that basically a playable class? Because God knows it first
more
edition, it was just
class.
it was really impossible to play first edition. I mean, I know you can play first edition Bard, but it was actually playable in second edition.
Well, I think that was part of it. Yeah,
You pretty much covered it.
The Bard was really not. It was such a. It was one of those ones where there were so many rules contradictions and just unclear aspects about the basic first edition Bard. So yeah, we had to try and figure out how to make him into a playable class. And the other problem with it is we had to try and figure out how do you make him not only just rules-wise work, but make him something that players understand what his role is and what he's supposed to do.
Sort of what is
What's
a
the
Bard?
point of it?
What is he supposed to be doing? And I mean, Zeb's idea for years, maybe not for years, but I know Zeb always used to walk around with the office with a paperback copy of Nordic sagas tucked in his back pocket.
I read a lot of them.
Yeah. And we had various discussions on that, and I know he was going for a kind of the sort of Beowulf type of Bard, a great warrior who brags about all of his accomplishments all the time, and that was not really. I mean, it kind of was at odds with the
I strum in the back of the party and make everybody feel happy
What
Bard.
I always refer to as the Ren Fair Bard.
Okay, probably paying too much attention to Bards. The original Bard that appeared in Strategic Review was like 2.5 characters for the price of 1. Because you're half magic user, half thief, all fighter, and then you had all this lore stuff that you could do on top of it. And the way it was written up was, it seemed at the time as though when this came out, it was like, wow, I'm going to play this character because I can do everything, okay? And it seemed, and I have no idea because I wasn't talking to anybody at TSR at the time, it seemed as though that the reaction in first edition was, oh my God, look what they did with this in the magazine article. We have to contain this thing. And so did any of that sort of trickle into your own thinking as in the midst of everything else you've talked about, that sort of sense of
You wanted to keep in balance to the, you wanted to keep all the characters feeling like, if I'm a third level that this guy over here is a third level isn't like, getting all the goodies and I'm sitting here and I'm screwed, right? So, you wanted to keep it balanced. The other problem with the Bard had been, I think their advancement rate was so horrendously slow and that basically, oh look, everybody else is like, 3 or 4 levels above me. It's like, and I don't feel like I'm making any progress. So, there were a bunch of issues that we wanted to try and tackle and get sorted out. And, and getting to the point where he was really, a fun class to play. in his own right. You know, something about, you know, how would he play if, you had just him, because people played solo adventures and stuff. Yeah.
About kits, was the idea for kits already established in your minds when you were working on the second edition core rules, or was that developed later as things coalesced?
I think
and
that
after
was,
you published?
the idea of kits as kits really came out after the second edition. I mean, basically, the second edition was like, all right, let's try and get these guys classified into kind of broader categories, but frankly, did not really, at that point, see or
Well, I would say.
the ultimate scope of.
Yeah, we knew we were going to do something like kits. It was not fully defined yet by the time the work was done on second edition, but the fighter handbook came out very shortly after the player's handbook, as I recall. And that was Aaron Alston, I think, did the work on that. And you know, Aaron was still is, as far as I know, a really talented designer. And I think, you know,
He saw the potential in what we had, in the groundwork we had laid.
And he did a really good job of laying that out. I don't think you know, that particular horse did not race out of control until quite a bit further down the
When
road.
did you know it had gotten out of control? When complete book of whatever, I mean, it got to the point where it's just...
I think probably my first, you know, inkling that things were getting out of hand was when we got to, I think it was probably the complete elf book. It was the Blade Singer.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
I was looking at that and thinking, okay, how did this make it? How did this get out the door? And honestly, I mean, I have to kind of, probably the blame for that belongs on me, for putting a little bit too much. I mean, those people worked for me, and it happened under my watch. So I was the one who should have put the brakes on.
Yeah, I think the issue probably was, you know, after we got past the complete core class books, then it was people started reaching, you know, in the kits. You know, it's like, wow, I got to create, and then it was like, wow, I'm not really basing this on a class. I'm basing this on, you know, just whatever I can, you know, hodgepodge together, kind of a stuff. And yeah, you started to see stuff that was,
Yeah, and there was no formula for it, right? I mean, if you look at 4th edition D&D and to a much larger extent 3rd edition, they're all very rigidly formulated. You know, the numbers advance like this, and we really didn't have anything like that for 2nd edition. It was much more subjective, much more seat of the pants, which frankly I find to be a really appealing approach. You know, you get a lot more eclectic and in some ways interesting game that way. But again, it goes back to that idea that if you don't have really consistent editing and design, you wind up with, you know, this guy is writing something and doesn't necessarily know what this person over here is doing, and you get confusion, and it all kind of goes back to that dysfunctional relationship. And there's a great deal of, you know, the authors looking at things and thinking, well,
I need to top what the last
yeah,
guy did.
yeah, Bob gave him a +1, and you know, nobody will play mine if I don't give him a +2. That'll clearly make mine better than Bob's. So,
But was the kit's concept a product of group brainstorming, or is there someone you
yeah.
can point a finger to and say, this is his brainchild, really? We just developed it.
no, that was definitely something that got kicked around a lot.
I mean, the initial idea to try and get like the fighter and the paladin under a kind of broader banner, you know, that was kind of my push initially. But really, then where that was going to go and what we were really going to then do with that, and really trying to, you know, just trying to extract what were the core elements to each one of those. You know, that was a lot of, you know, there was a fair amount of, you know, I don't want to say groupthink, but, you know, none of the really major decisions got made by somebody completely independently.
Yeah, nobody really had a final voice, except maybe Jim Ward. You know, it's going to be like this because that's the way I want it.
Yeah, and really, we did not have anybody. You know, Jim Ward may have had that voice, but he really didn't exercise that
Right. No,
voice.
he was very much in, you know, about making sure that, this was a group process, and, playtest feedback was involved in all of that as well. But yeah, so we knew we were going to do kits, we didn't know exactly how until we got to the point of actually designing the kits.
Did you guys get ordered to do this, or was there, I guess my question is, how much pressure did you feel, how much did you sweat thinking, okay, we're gonna do the first retool of this game, and if we screw it up.
Well, see, being young and foolish, we volunteered, but we wanted to do it. And only after we got going into it and started getting into it, then we started to get really the waves and vibrations of like, oh my God, you guys better not screw this up.
There was one of the very first things that I did was I got multiple copies of the Player's Handbook and the DMG, and when we were still thinking of it as, Zeb was going to clean up the rules, and I was going to do the big reorganization, and that was going to be mostly the extent of it. And I sat there at my desk with an X-Acto knife, cutting the book apart and retaping it in the order that I wanted. And I've got little bits and pieces of the books pegged to my walls all over the place. And in cases, cutting this sentence out of a paragraph and sticking it
Wow.
here. And I worked on that for, I don't know, a pretty long time. At least it seemed like an awfully long time. Because remember, we were working on computers at the time, of course, but none of this material existed electronically. It had all been typed and then typed into another typesetting machine and pasted up by hand. I mean, if you look in the books, you see there are paragraphs that are crooked and line spacing that's off. So none of it existed electronically. There was no way to go in and do that with any kind of desktop publishing. We had to do it by hand. And I did not get through, either one of the books in its entirety before I realized this is a fool's mission. It just simply cannot be done.
Yeah, I mean, it got to the point where they literally moved both Steve and I out of the regular floor of designers and editors and put us down in separate, basically in offices, which was unheard of because we were all in Cube Land before.
Yeah.
They put us in offices down in marketing land simply so that we would be isolated and could focus. Because when we were up working with everybody, amongst everybody else, there was too much curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you working on now?
Yeah.
And even just for us, I mean,
there was too much for us just to go out and talk about this stuff.
Right. I mean, in a design environment, that's great. You hear people talking in the next cube about something that's interesting, and so you go over, you join the conversation, you get a lot of cross-germination of ideas, but when you really want to sit and focus on something. And so having an office with a door on it was a really nice thing.
What was the impetus for the Black Book reprint? Because my opinion was I got the idea that TSR, when they put the new logo on there and everything, wanted second edition to just be the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, like first edition didn't even exist or anything like that. So what was the impetus for reprinting?
You mean what the makeover?
Yeah.
Books,
Yeah. Basically just to freshen up the look of it.
Okay.
I think there was probably some hope at some level of the company that people who had if their Player's Handbook was, I forget how many years we were into it, if it was 4 years old or so, and people use these books hard. And, if you want to go replace your book, you want a new cover. And I don't know if you looked in those. I wrote that forward with the very big, this is not third edition.
Yes,
I remember that.
Because we didn't want to confuse anybody. Because there was talk about third edition out there in the letter columns and things like that.
Well, just that you dropped the 2E on there and be kind of suspicious of all.
Well, yeah, that was because at that point we felt like this is AD&D, right? Why should we?
Yeah, we felt that the 2E was essentially confusing at that point because people would go, well, what's that mean? People who had never,
Yeah, no, you're right. That was very intentional. We wanted to give the idea that this is AD&D.
Okay.
Way in the back.
A question for you. I was fairly young when the second edition came out. Did you guys get a lot of resistance from first edition players? Like now in third edition, in transition to fourth, people got pissed about that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't ever see that back then, but then I was just reading Dragon magazine, so I don't know, maybe it existed, but.
Well, yeah, and we talked about that a little bit earlier, because there were no online forums at the time. There was no
Right.
place for everybody and his dog to just vent, to say whatever he happened to be on his mind at the time. But yes, we got lots and lots of letters.
I got accused of destroying the game so many times that, it was like, please, give me a break.
Into the second edition?
I mean, even when third edition came out, and this was the thing that annoyed me, is, I got this wave of arguments, and now we did have the internet, right? Of, oh, they had to do third edition because second edition had destroyed the game.
Probably the best letter exchange we got was a letter from a guy who was very angry, maybe not bordering on irrational, but very angry, of the fact that we were going to be ruining the game, and on and on and on. And the man who was kind of in charge of production at that time was Mike Dobson, and he took the letter and he wrote a very nice letter back to this guy, saying, look, you're misinterpreting what we're trying to do. All we really want to do is clean things up, get rid of inconsistencies, basically make the game so that it's easier for people to understand and has a broader appeal in the market, right? Make it easier for people to get into the game. And he got a letter back from this guy saying, that's exactly what I'm talking about. When you master the rules of D&D, you feel like you are smart. Only really, really smart people can do this. I don't want anybody to be able to pick up this game and play it. So there was
You are not our target audience.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, there's like, well, what can you do? One of the things that, as we were getting closer to it coming out, they sent us out to various conventions, or it was the way to contact the fans, kind of get the word out and that sort of stuff. But one of the things that really we wound up spending a lot of time reassuring them about is that no, we're not really trying to change the game. We're trying to actually incorporate a lot of the changes that you guys are already doing, into the game. Because you sit down and explain, well, this is what we're going to do, and this is how it works, and they go, oh yeah, we do. Oh yeah, we don't pay any attention to those rules over there.
Yeah, we did get a lot of that. We're doing that already. So that sounds fine.
Well, one last question for you guys. What's your favorite thing you did besides 2E? What's your favorite project y'all have been?
Wow. Well, for me, it was probably Planescape, simply because it's so damn weird. And they let me get away with it.
Yeah, that was kind of a tour de force. Wow. As much as, I don't know, it's hard to say. I worked on so many, being an editor, our production cycle was a little bit shorter, so I worked on a ton of time. Spelljammer, I was very pleased with the way Spelljammer came out. It was a really difficult process to get it to its final form. That was a really good one. Probably Al-Qadim, though, I would say. I was not in the trenches on that one, but I was the product manager, so shuffling that all along, making sure that it all turned out the way we wanted. I would say that was probably the biggest.
You still get a lot of confidence in Al-Qadim.
Because my name doesn't appear in the product anywhere, so I don't get any credit for Al-Qadim at all.
That's the state of editors.
Yeah. But
You were the brand manager, I think, at that point.
yes, I was the creative director on that. So everything that went into it came through me. But my feeling, if you look at a lot of products now, they have everybody who glanced at the manuscript has his name in it. And I kind of had a philosophy that if you weren't really in the trenches on this, the people who get their names in the credits are the people who were there, 8 hours a day working on that product. So I purposefully kept my name out of a lot of things, so that the people who really did the work would get the credit. So now you all know.
Any other questions from anybody?
I got one more question. How'd you get the name Zeb?
Well, let's see. This goes way back to when I was teaching high school. before I got started at TSR, and my students decided I looked like a character in a TV Western named Zeb. And basically, if you've ever been a teacher, you know that they can certainly call you a lot worse. So I was like, okay, I can deal with that. That's cool. That's good, right? When I got to TSR, they had David Sutherland, they had David LaForce, who was Diesel. I don't think there was another Dave in there.
Well, okay, you already got Dave Sutherland. Yeah, Dave Trampier.
Dave Trampier, who was sometimes in the office, and they
Dave
said,
Conant.
yeah, he was Dave Conant. There was a whole bunch of people, and they said, you're another Dave. You need a nickname. Now, again, the principle is I can either give them a nickname or they can give me one. So I said, just call me Zeb. And so that worked. And then at some point along the way, one of the editors actually said, you really should use that in your byline, because it's a lot more distinctive than just Dave Cook, or David Cook. And so I started doing that, and then after that it was like doomed, I worked at companies where secretaries didn't even know my real name.
Well, thank you, Zeb and Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for doing the forward. Oh, that was fun. It was fun. Literally, it was like, this is a flashback to some of the stuff that I looked at way back when I was right.
Oh, you had the same flashback response I did when I was judging it, I've probably seen this before. And then the artwork was definitely a flashback. Definitely. Oh, I don't think we're
We're start.
Just go.
You had your chance.
His son is ours.
Don't get fooled. Got out of the way.
No.
Have a giant one that has X on one side, squares on the other, and it's so big it's like it will not even fit over it. It's like a table from like comes.
Oh, yeah.
You probably want a large scale compact.
Actually, I kill him off a lot. I can kill him off a lot less than 3, man. They can never make it up the river.
Rocks fall, everybody dies.
No, they can never make it up the river plus the crocodiles and giant frogs. The hell with the temple. They never make it through the crocodiles. Oh, I carry it.
Look at this.
I love swamp. I admit it freely. Crocs jumping 6 feet out of the water, straight up. Cool.
But it's good, it's good. Yeah, Eddie really good.
You guys want to start?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you're holding the crowds back out in the hall.
Tickets only, tickets only.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Quarterly
quarterly seat.
kind of trickling in as the.
Okay,
So
okay.
hopefully it's a trickling good game, you know.
Well, depends on what's trickling.
That ain't gonna be released now.
What's it gonna be?
It's gonna be Snake Riders Deer Dondo.
That was what was on it yesterday.
Well, the corrections didn't
Yeah.
get, it's all good. If I have to do that, I'll come down and get a digest size one and run it back around. Doesn't matter.
Maybe.
Well, this is a.
Let's do this, otherwise it looks like we're bickering.
Yeah, okay, all right, yes, all right. We don't wanna look like we're.
We're out on it or anything.
Well, audience of 4. Well, we better laugh a lot. Get some strangers to watch, right?
Yeah, well,
Well, I'll start. I met Michael at Gary Con last March, but I didn't, and at the time I realized I was very familiar with his work, which was the Dungeon Alpha. And we just kind of hit it off, and we found we shared a lot of philosophies on gameplay and gaming. So I said, man, it'd be great. We're going to Texas. Let's do a seminar on Gonzo gaming. And my definition of Gonzo gaming is never letting the rules get in the way of having fun. Okay, I've given up the addition wars. I don't care. The system is just a means to get to the fun. But if the system is hindering you getting to the fun, I suggest you might consider there may be a better way to do it. And when a rule gets in the way, you know, I heard something today, funny thing. The guy says, I don't like his DM stuff because he rolls his dice out in the open. Well, the reason was because this particular DM would occasionally fudge in his player's favor. Never the other way. But when you roll it out in the open, you become a slave to the dice. And I said, well, that's a good thing to talk about now, becoming a slave to the dice. As a DM, do you absolutely do what the dice say? Or do you fudge a little here, fudge a little there, up one time, down another, to keep the fun going, to keep the story running? Because it's all about the story. It's a real, DMs just tell a story. And if a plot device gets in the way, scrap it. Because the story is where you don't even know where the story is going. So that's kind of something in my that, or the fact that you can run a game and not have any maps or anything, you just do it off the top of your head.
Right. And I think in my case, I think Gonzo gaming for me really came down to it took a little while, but the philosophy kind of finally sunk in. And I stole a little bit from Dr. Strangelove, and my philosophy basically came down to stop worrying and love the dungeon. Because there was a period that I went through where you start really getting into it. It's like, okay, does this dungeon make sense? Do we have a workable dungeon ecology? Is there enough for the monster to be eating on here to survive? What's the why can't we have a gold dragon next to in the room where the Sith Lords are living? There's got to be some sort of logistical sense to that. And that really kind of got in my way for quite some time until eventually I kind of realized that as the hobby has been developing, I mean, we've lost a lot of the kind of Wild West, no rules necessarily, and when as OD&D, they were clear in the forest. So it's become, as the editions have gone by, not to get any edition bashing, but this is just how the hobby has evolved. There's become more and more a thought that there has to be some sort of logical sense of things. Things have to be codified. And for me, no, there shouldn't be. And in fact, the further you get down the dungeon, the weirder it should get. I think that if we really wanted to have a realistic subterranean experience, we wouldn't be gamers. We'd all be taking a cave. We'd all just be along there. Yeah. If you really want to go down underground and see see a realistic experience, you'd be doing that. I mean, we're playing this because we want to have fun. So if you can introduce fun, great.
Well, that's what we're there for. We facilitate. I've always felt, and my writing philosophy is that the DM is there to facilitate the fun. And my writing approach and my Eldritch products is to give the DM as many tools as his toolbox will hold, as many arrows as his quiver will hold, and let him decide which ones he uses and which ones he doesn't. I'm very much sandbox as opposed to railroad. Though I understand the necessity for railroad when you're doing sequences and clues and stuff like that. But when I first started writing on the boards a few years ago, I was vastly amused reading about all the people bitch about their DMs, bitch about other players in the group. And I was incredulous. I go, well, hell, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it? You know, if the DM sucks, quit going. You know, bad DMs find out they're bad DMs when nobody shows up. And until you let them know that they're not being good, they're going to continue to be bad.
It's like the new culture of message boards that people just love to whine, even if they secretly are enjoying what they're doing.
Yes, I understand there is a great deal of that. Yeah, people just love to whinge and whine.
Yeah.
But
Together.
I even changed one of my signatures on Dragon's Foot to, if you're not having fun, what the hell are you doing it for?
Yeah.
I heard, again, I think I picked it up on the blog, so somebody made some sort of comment, and I cracked up because, the whole idea is that, make your own fun, and their comment is like, well, when you're gaming, you're responsible for your own orgasm. I mean,
Very well put, yes, very well put.
If you're not having fun, why the hell are you playing?
Yeah.
You're spending 6 hours, 8 hours with, people around a table. We do that for work pretty much, so why do it on our day off?
Yeah, no money.
Right.
There's got to be some payback. There's got to be some compensation, and it's the fun.
And especially if you're the poor bastard running the game, because you're the one who's putting all this time and effort in it. And God forbid you're running some system that you're running because your players want to do this, and you're not having any fun. I mean, they get to show up with snacks and they get entertained for the game session, and you're the poor son of a bitch stuck, working after work trying to put together some system that you're really not all that interested in. So. I mean, if you're going to have fun, why not go, have fun with it? Go Gonzo.
Well, that's it. I just, a few months back, started my first campaign in 34 years. Because I have not run a campaign since I went to TSR. I got too involved in that. So I had been going to the friendly local game store and knew a couple of people. And when I first moved to Cincinnati, several of my gaming buddies who were on me all over, oh, come on. And I was very disillusioned, and I said, no, I board gamed, I miniatured, but I would not role play. So I decided, Frank Manser, my partner, said, you need to be doing that just to keep sharp. So I started up a group, and they're all first and second edition players. I got a third, I think, in the group there, and I think I might even have a four that just came in because he was disillusioned. He was a young guy. And the thing I had to break him from was the only thing you're allowed on the table in my game is your character sheet, a pencil, and some dice, and whatever you're drinking or snacking on. That's it. Rule books don't come out of the back. I play by the same rules. I don't take them out of the back either. Now that means if I don't remember something, okay, yeah, that'll work. Okay, it's good, because it's all about the texture and the flow of the game. If you get hung up on a pip on the die, are we there to let our mythical characters face the reality of their bad decisions and die, or are we there to have some fun tonight? Drink some drinks, eat some snacks, have some laughs. So that's, to me, that's what good stuff, that's what old school is about. Don't like the rule, change it. And it's been tough. We got together 3 times, and I had to kind of, a couple of times to a couple of them, don't worry about that, we don't care, But now we started a new campaign. Everybody started at a base 5th level, whatever they wanted to be. And oh my Lord, I'd forgotten just how challenging it is to be the DM. And they don't feel it, but they're currently playtesting my next product that's coming out. And they've suffered the slings and arrows that I'm going to tone down for production. But it's fun not only just to have playtests, but it's fun to get the feedback, because what I've always valued around the table is the synergy that the table produces. The sum is always greater than the parts. You can be sitting there against 5 people across the table and you swear you're thinking against 8. Because when the group starts cooking, and they start catching on, which is what we've done as DMs. We've set them puzzles, given them hints, given them clues, and when they start catching on and they start clicking, it's a great thing to behold, and I just let it go. And oh hell, you turned right. I was sure you were gonna go left, and I spent all week on that wing of the dungeon. okay, and you just start making it up, and then when you get home, you draw out what you told them they did, and now and then you finish out that way in the dungeon, and next week they come back and they decide to go left. So but that's the story. The best way, when Frank and I were in here earlier, the story is the important thing, and Frank and Jim and I and Chris feel that the story has been left out of role play. It's all about the mechanics, go kill things and take their stuff. But it's the stories that make you want to come back, you know, save the princess, rescue the kingdom, you know, it's the stories. And we're all storytellers to one degree or another. And if you want to remember what it was like to be a storyteller, to divorce yourself from rules and constraints, do what I was forced to do twice in the last year, and that's run a completely extemporaneous adventure. And I know it's tough, and I know there's some people that can't probably do it, and they'd be scared to try. But I had a premise. These 5 sellsword, you know, medium-level pukes were hard to do a job, and they failed, and now they're going to die if they don't remedy it. And it's a mystery what happened with the stuff that was stolen you're supposed to be guarding. And I had an overall general map of my enormous city that I'm working on, one of my future products a couple years down the road. I have a city about the size of late Republican Rome within walls. And every race on my world lives there and has an enclave. And it's neutral ground for everybody. So they found that the thing had been stolen and spirited away to the city. So then when they got there, I said, okay, what are you doing? They tell me, what are you doing? And so one guy's going to check, find out gossip in the soup, you know. What are you doing? What are you doing? And I go around and let him tell me what I'm doing. Well, while I'm doing that, I'm also thinking about the ones I want to look at. You find out this. You don't find out anything. You hear this interesting story. You thought you were onto it, but it didn't quite pan out. Okay? And all right, now, what are you doing? What are you doing? Now, you know what just happened? You guys just start writing the story. I'm letting you write the story a paragraph at a time. And all I'm doing is throwing something back at you to write the next line with. Man, that is fun! I did it in November in Kansas City, and then I did it again in February in TotalCon where I got caught. I'd taken 4 different adventures. They were running 6 sessions. Sunday, there's never anybody there on Sunday, and I had a full table, and they played everything I brought. So, okay, oh yeah, I bullshit. I said, oh, I got something here, and I made a big to-do, and I set up my little whiteboard thing that I use. And we played for over 4 hours, and I tipped it over, and there was nothing behind there, and they just went nuts. I said, well, you wrote the story. Did you have fun? And they had a great time. And it didn't go anything at all like the time I did that before with the same basic premise in Kansas City. Nothing at all. Absolutely. They took different tacks. Different things happened to them. Ludicrous things went on in one, and the other group just couldn't possibly get away with any that bold and daring, you know, and whatever. And that's what the story, you know, let your players tell the story again for you. It's easier. It's easier, especially when you get caught. You know, they went the wrong direction and you don't have that wing done. You know, Garrett used to just tell us, no, there's a sign up, you can't go in under construction. And we couldn't go in. That was it. But Gary had a unique dungeon. He drew about, you know, I don't know, 17 levels, but that's all he ever drew in his whole career. Because Greyhawk, for a while, it'd be the orc level. And the orcs would all get cleaned out, and it'd be vacant for a while, and then, oh shit, there's goblins living down there now. And then you'd go all over, and all the rooms were, you know, the structures were the same, but of course everything inside the ecology was all different. And so I thought to myself, man, he figured out how to do it the easy way, because here I've been drawing new stuff for every adventure, you know. And so it was just, you know, all right, we're going to the orc dungeon, and so, or the orc level. And so they know they go down 2 levels, and they turn left, and then turn right, you know, and they get there, okay, and the adventure starts, and oh, what do you know, the other construction sign's gone. So now we can go play in there. And that was really just a lot of kill things and take their stuff with a very thin storyline sketched over it. But we didn't need storylines back then because the whole object of the game in the early days was to amass enough loot to build yourself a castle, go carve yourself out a little minor barony on the edge of the wilderness and retire your character and start a new one. And so many people lost sight of that so soon. They wanted to be a 36 level, whatever, you know, whatever we call it. And that was never the intent of the game. There was always a leveling off point. Generally, in the early days, 9th to 12th level, you thought about retiring your character, and start again, because the fun was building the character up. That changed with level creep and all, experience creep and all that. That's why we put out Gods, Demigods, and Heroes. I killed Thor last weekend and we wiped out Valhalla.
Well,
We're bored.
But that's also an element of Gonzo gaming.
But that is, yeah, let's go kill Valhalla.
Go kill Thor. I mean,
You know, and so, yeah, they did it.
But you know, it's funny, which is kind of a good segue to something I had in mind. You were talking about doing an adventure with letting the players write it. So, you know, and that you know, that's a Gonzo approach. You know, not only that because it's unorthodox, but also because I mean, it causes you to kind of roll with what the players are throwing at you. And I think that makes a nice reflection of something that I've been thinking about lately. Is that for a lot of the definition for Gonzo gaming for me is taking like the tropes, taking the cliches of the hobby. I mean, because we're getting almost on 40 years of history behind us, and so there have become cliches, there have become expected elements. So the Gonzo approach is to take those elements and turn them directly upon their ear.
Absolutely.
And what you get out of it. And my classic example for that is that this is basically what sums up Gonzo gaming for me. Is that the classic, it's a stereotype, it's like you open the door, it's a 10-foot room, 10-foot by 10-foot room, there's an orc guarding a chest in there. I mean, little Billy who got, his first role-playing game for Christmas, by Christmas afternoon, he can design that encounter. So I've been thinking about, okay, so let's just take this classic idea here and let's turn it on its ear a little bit and see, what, you kind of bring back a little bit of that wildness to it. So you open the door, there's a 10-foot by 10-foot room, there's a chest guarding an orc. So, I mean, just turning it around, and so you start playing with that idea, and like, okay, what exactly could that mean? I mean, if we're playing, D&D or anything for that heritage, I think it's pretty much simple to do, because we do actually have a monster which is a chest. But if you really wanted to Gonzo it up and kind of go away from that idea, I was thinking the idea of the bouncing Betty mine, where you set on something and you now trigger the mine. So I picture this orc. He's down in the dungeon and he's exploring around, and he lives down there, so he knows that most of the good stuff are in these chests, right? So he's walking along and he goes in the room and checks it, and click, whoa. So he knows what a click means down in the dungeon. So now he is stuck, kind of leaning on the chest, like, what am I going to do now? And at that point, our party adventurers open up, and they can wander in, and we have the chest guarding the orc, and it gives us a situation where, I mean, if you do it the one way, there's an orc guarding a chest. That's instantly a combat encounter. I mean, you open the door, it's like, okay, we kill the orc and we loot the chest. Now we turn this almost into a social role-playing encounter, because now the orc, all right, these guys may be able to help me out here. So what am I going to do? Convince them that they want to save me, and what can I do for them? And if the characters do turn into a combat encounter, we were just going to kill the orc and loot the chest. Well, obviously the chest is trapped. So now the orc falls over dead, and who knows, the chest blows up or what happens, or so it's that's the element of bringing back the unexpected into it, and just taking an idea which just seems so simple and just looking at it through a different lens. And that has a lot of the idea of the dungeon doesn't necessarily have to make sense, but it definitely has to be entertaining. So.
It has to have an interior logic that is not applicable to anything else. As long as, I did this last time and A happened and it's exactly identical, A's got to happen again.
Very much, yeah. I will clarify that. If there is,
there has to be an interior logic, but it doesn't have to relate to anything else.
Have to reflect anything else which is occurring in the campaign or the real world.
Yeah, and you used the term the Wild West days, and that's what it was. And I'm gonna give a plug to a person that I'm a fanboy of, and that's Jolly Blackburn of Knights. I think that what Jolly has done through 184 issues is he's never quite lost that Wild West, wide-eyed, exploring the boundaries of role-playing, because those guys, they try to damn this crap, and he's never really, all those strips he's written, he's never really, in my mind, he's never really lost that Wild West, let's go, what are we going to do tonight? We're going to trash the campaign, whether they're playing Cattle Punk or Hackmaster or Space Hack or whatever the heck they're playing, And I'm really amused by the debate on whether BA is a bad DM. He's too easy, he's a wimp, no. I think he's a great DM, long-suffering, wonderful guy who is there to facilitate the fun and lets him run amok. And occasionally, yes, the last panel has him with his head on the table going, oh my God, they did it to me again. But can any of us that ever DMs say this never happened to us? It happens. And that's why I'm the fly in the amber. I play AD&D. I don't even play all the supplements. I don't use gods, demigods, and heroes, because we don't fool around with gods in my world. It's just the way we go. And I've never really understood, I have no idea where 4.0 came from, and I'm not here to bash editions per se, but I don't know how what we were playing in 74 and 75 became a video game on paper, on a table that takes you 6 hours to kill 8 orcs.
Money.
Well, I mean, well, yeah. And
No, I just mean that the MMOs have such a big influence, both money and style, that, you know, it was inevitable that it would. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I don't actually like it as D&D at all.
No, I don't either. But if you're happy playing it, I no longer care what system anybody plays. System is just there to get you to the fun. As long as you're having fun, I don't care how you got there. In a Volkswagen or a Mercedes, doesn't make any difference to me. A hoopty or an Indy car, I don't care. As long as you're having fun, I'm not going to say you shouldn't be. And I write stuff that'll fit all the systems, because we're using generic stat blocking. That I'm just there to let you have some fun, and I'm going to encourage you, don't pay too much attention to what I wrote. I got some good ideas in there, but you know, if it's not working, if it doesn't fit, then grab the seat of your pants and change the rules and fly for a while. Because that's what, you know, it's the way I write. I go home and I'll write a stream of consciousness, probably 2,000 words thing about this con. And I don't care if I exactly got it right in chronological order, because I'm just, and so it doesn't matter if
Gonzo journalism.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm into a personal embarrassment. When I started writing on Dragon's Foot, I had a couple people that keep telling me that I had an HST style writing. I'm a big fan of his, but I never made the association that HST was on those stars. I was a huge fan of his. I read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas serialized in Rolling Stone in the 60s. And I kind of patterned my writing after him. I just write what I'm thinking, you know, and have a good time. Well, that's kind of the way I play. Now, I'm not going to move you from one room to another and one level to another, but hey, let's go with the flow. Let's see how it goes. You know, and that's the way I play. He can tell you. He played a couple of my games at CarryCon. At one point, we had about a half TPK going. I told him, guys, half of you are dead and you're screwed. You don't pull something out of your butt, you're TPK. So there was a certain dwarf in the party. What was his name? Sigurd. Who I allowed to bring along a potion of Hell Giant strength. And see, I don't get AD&D-ish about it. I don't care if he's little, let him drink it, who cares? Well, he decided to drink it and go out and grapple barehanded with the polar bears. Oddly enough, I had written up a mechanic in case the bear got you in a bear hug to get out. Well, he had Hell Giant strength. No problem. And he killed them both barehanded. Now think about this. He's a dwarf. And these are 12-foot polar bears. Where's his face when he's trying to break his spine, right? And so that was all over GaryCon the whole weekend. The bear killer, the bear killer, the bear killer. Completely weird crap. Sure, go ahead and give it a try. He kept making these die rolls. Why not? That's Gonzo. Go for it. See what happens. Go for it. You know, just have a good time.
Right.
Die gloriously.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. Nobody remembers the character who played it safe. That's it.
No, that's exactly it. You know, go and have a good time. Now, you don't play home campaigns like you play.
No.
One-offs here where you're looking for fame and glory. But the concept applies.
Right. I mean,
go for the gusto.
You know, I was talking a little bit Gonzo gaming from the judges or the referee for the game master point of view, and that's a very important role. But I mean, the idea of you're responsible for your own orgasm as a player. I mean, you have you have to look for those opportunities to introduce the Gonzo into the game as well. And to, you know, we were talking about Hunter S. Thompson, and Hunter S. Thompson, the term of Gonzo is, you know, he's embraced the chaos a little bit. It's like, don't just observe the story, you know, throw yourself in the midst of the story and become part of it. So I think if we're going to talk about source material here from the literature point of view into the hobby, my favorite example of what I would consider Gonzo gaming in literature has got to be Fritz Leiber's story, The Price of Paintings. And it's one of his short stories, and it's not one of his more well-known, but it is my favorite Leiber story because I've always enjoyed playing thieves from time to time. And at the start of that adventure, it involves Fafford and the Grey Mouser stealing a house. Which I think to be, if you were a thief, the idea of literally stealing a house is pretty damn Gonzo. And you'd employ it as a player, is to do something that somebody is going to remember, you know, rather than just like, okay, I'm gonna, you know, slug the guy and take his pouch and everything. Think big, think crazy, think Gonzo. I mean, just, you know, as long as it makes sense in of how you're playing and in the setting of the campaign, you're here to have a good time and embrace the chaos. And I don't mean, you know, chaotic evil or chaotic anything.
No.
Embrace the creativity, think outside of the box.
Was it your game also that somebody there kept saying, if we gotta roll dice, do the other thing?
That's my personal attitude. As a player, I don't want to roll dice. Rolling dice is the quickest way to get yourself killed. If you can think of anything
I really
else
appreciate it